Hello and welcome again to Lecture 5. In this lecture, we will discuss True Value, the software consumer's continual quest. In this lecture, we will investigate how to make sure that the organization is getting true value of the software purchase with a clear return on investment that will lead to cost reduction and increasing profit. I doubt that anyone of you would bother to rent a car, take it home, and just let it sit in the driveway, unless trying to impress the neighbors with the fact that they have such an exotic machine at their disposal, of course. Value is using our resources in the optimum fashion. And in a case like this, the car as a resource would not be used in the optimum fashion. For instance, if I have one car and it can be used 24 by 7 by multiple people who never need simultaneous access, and the terms of car usage allow for such an arrangement, then perhaps I am close to optimizing value. However, if one driver wishes to transport 8 people at a time, another only needs to transport 2, and yet another wishes to carry bales of hay, then there may be further issues of size and functionality with the single vehicle. If the vehicle is rented, there may be also further complications added by the entitlement. Perhaps there are restrictions on the load, on the mileage traveled per day, or on the hours used. Software is no different when regarded as resource. Often, however, it cannot be functionally identified in deployment, usage, or entitlement. Not only does the licensing model not support varied types of usage, the measurement of such usage is not possible unless using specific tools is implemented. In the next slides, we will discuss important generic recommendations that will support any organization to have a proactive management monitoring of their software license environment and to achieve value and mitigate risks. And by risks, we mean audit risks, legal risks, financial risks. These recommendations are regarding the application of SAM within the organization. So the first category of recommendations is regarding applying SAM throughout the organization. And point number 1 is board of directors level formal sponsorship for SAM should exist, meaning that this must have the proper priority and importance within the organization. The top management sponsorship and support is essential for the success of SAM. A defined budget to promote SAM in the group, meaning that all required initiatives are possible to be implemented. That a clear, realistic budget to cover the activities needed to implement an effective SAM. Clarity, accountability, and ownership of the responsibility, especially considering group structure, not to cause confusion and overlaps on how to handle SAM. Thus, the clarity of roles and functions of the individuals and stakeholders involved in the SAM program is necessary for SAM success. Define SAM policies and training people to properly handle SAM. A clear policy governing software license management and training of the concerned staff to properly handle SAM. Standardization across the organization to have consistent implementation of key aspects of SAM. There must be a clear standard process organization-wide regarding all the phases of the software lifecycle. SAM improvement plan. After having SAM, improvement is essential as there is no one-size-fits-all concept when it comes to SAM. So monitoring the new requirements that arise and improving the SAM to cover all the environment is necessary. And the first recommendation here is that should have organizational vision goals and objectives for SAM, the group, to define the areas to improve and therefore create a roadmap to improve SAM. And these goals must be specific and clear. For example, achieving cost reduction by 20% within 3 months, or achieving compliance across all vendors within 1 year. And the performance of SAM should be measured continuously against these goals to know the areas of improvement. Should have a SAM improvement plan so that the SAM program does not lose its focus and importance in the organization. This is a result of the previous point that an improvement plan should exist in order to stay on the track. Should have KPIs and keep an eye on them to be able to identify weakness or improvements made, and resources might be allocated to areas where these are critical. This is necessary to have KPIs and keep them in front of our eyes to measure effectiveness of SAM all the time. And in a later lecture, we will discuss SAM metrics, and this is about the measurements that can give us the indication if the SAM program is sufficient and proactive or if it's poor and needs improvement. Hardware and software inventory. A base foundation for a successful SAM is to have an accurate hardware and software inventory for your IT environment, because this is what you are going to manage and control. So, first recommendation here should have the ability to track hardware assets such that the risk of theft or loss decrease. The use of pirated illegal software must be prohibited to decrease the risk of incompliance. Also, such pirated illegal software are a source of cyber threats that the sponsor of the SAM or the owner of the SAM program should make sure that only original software is used and no blacklisted vendors are being used, as these are always the backdoor for cyber threats. The use of depreciated or non-supported software increases the risk of security incidents and operational stoppages with potential severe impacts for business. The software should not be end of support to guarantee the business continuity, and that no sudden purchases take place of new software to compensate for the missing support. Should keep an updated software inventory. This helps several functions within the organization not to face unnecessary challenges, such as help desk, for example, additional time to understand the software, edition, version installed when a help desk request is made, or business continuity when a major incident occurs and alternative facilities solution need to be up and running but not clear what was the software edition version installed on the production infrastructure. This inventory should be accurate and centralized. Accuracy of inventory. Having updated hardware and software inventory and also licenses will be of great support when a company undergoes a merger, acquisition, or divestiture to avoid significant loss of value and also create issues for the future. For example, consolidation of overlapping platforms, applications, contracts, and products. Having an accurate inventory doesn't only allow management of current software, but it will facilitate any changes in the future. Accurate hardware or software inventories and also licenses will prevent over or under purchasing, renewal of software, and exposure to fines and deterioration with the software producers, and thus save costs. Accurate inventory leads to the ability to measure most cost-effective metric to the software, as it's possible to determine what are the software products in use, by whom and how. For example, some licenses are specific for non-production environments. Some software can be reused by several users with some limitations. Accurate inventory will enable to decide the most suitable metrics to measure the performance against, and what types of license are the best fit for the needs of the different individuals within the organization. Accuracy on inventory continued. Eliminate the risk of overspending on software maintenance and support, even on software that's not really in use, to avoid financial risk of overspending. License entitlement records. Keeping a record of entitlement is no less important than keeping a record for licenses. When a company undergoes a merger, acquisition, or divestiture, failing to have updated entitlement records and also hardware and software inventories might represent significant loss of value and also create issues for the future. For example, consolidation of overlapping platforms, applications, contracts, and products. Inaccurate entitlements records and also hardware or software inventories might lead to over or under purchasing, renewal of software, and exposure to fines and relationship deterioration with the software producers. Inaccurate entitlements records can lead to overspending and poor return on investment. A centralized purchase process should exist, and implementation of relevant controls. For example, only enterprise software can be purchased. All purchases must be approved by the central team, and regular verification to the process decreases the risk of having an inaccurate entitlements database. This is necessary to have an up-to-date overall vision of the whole software environment. And if at least the decision cannot all the time be taken from the center or cannot be centralized all the time, at least there must be a strict policy, and there always should be monitoring to make sure that this policy is followed in all the branches and across all the departments. License entitlements records continued. Should rely on inventory created internally by the organization, that relying on software producer entitlements declaration to track licenses purchases increase the risk of having incomplete or missing entitlements, especially for older products, and also fail to understand and apply the proper requirements restriction of usage for each license or product. Without a complete and detailed central software entitlements database, and regularly maintained, it might be a very time-consuming and difficult exercise. For example, when an external audit is requested to verify information dating back years due to company, product, and metric changes over the years. Thus, it's necessary to keep historic information, also to be guaranteed that all the future purchases are aligned with the organization's needs and strategy. Periodic evaluation. Without proper periodic identification of the license metric and product use rights, the risk of not properly determining the most cost-effective licenses increases. Without an accurate license position regularly determined, the group might over or under purchase, renew software and maintenance or support, and be exposed to fines and relationship deterioration with the software producers. Without stakeholder or executive review and sign-off of reports, SAM efforts might lose its visibility and importance within the organization. Thus, the regular involvement and follow of the SAM sponsors in the organization is necessary for the success of SAM. SAM operations, management, and interfaces. A centralized and accurate repositories must exist. Such different functions will have access to consistent and complete data, for example, detail readiness. Having accurate centralized repositories will decrease cost and time to implement and maintain all different repositories, thus creating a repository of a certain department, branch, or for the software of a certain vendor or the software which is end of support. Should adopt similar centralized methods and architectures to address similar processes, for example, incident management, for each company, thus not losing potential scale economies. Incident management, change management also should have a central repository to know how the software environment is performing and changing. This can be a huge resource for knowledge and lessons learned. Acquisition process. Incomplete or outdated training to the SAM and procurement teams on software compliance, for example, licensing rules, product use rights, increases the risk of not adopting the metric with the best cost effective considering the type of usage of each company or area. Software that is purchased outside the centralized procurement system may not be properly accounted for example, OEM or bundled licenses. The lack of an approved software list increases the risk of non approved purchases. Thus, an approved software list should be there, and any software outside this approved list should be prohibited from being purchased. Increased risk of over or under purchases of software if no gap analysis is performed between the deployments and the entitlements before the purchase. Thus, conducting continuous gap analysis and reconciling these gaps, as mentioned before, is necessary. Deployment process. Without a complete and accurate license position, the risk of approving install software without the proper license increases. Granting IMAC privileges. IMAC means install, move, add, and change privileges to some functions, for example, development, increases the risk of installation of non-approved, non-licensed software. The lack of an approved software list for deployment increases the risk of non-approved software to be deployed. This is another list for deployment. So there must be also an approved list for deployment. And any software that's outside this list should not be deployed. Absence of a central distribution software tool increases the time to deploy changes. For example, install new versions, and also the risk of having non-authorized, non-licensed software installed, for example, after a decision to remove it has been given. There are many on the market and shall evaluate which tool best fit the organization. Deployment process continued. Incomplete or outdated training to the IT teams on software compliance, for example, licensing rules, product use rights, increases the risk of changes to the software that might require a different license. These were recommendations which are concluded from practical cases on the ground, and if these 36 recommendations are accounted for and receive the due attention of the SAM owner in the organization, the SAM will be proactive, will succeed in mitigating many risks, and will achieve more profit and reduce cost for the organization. Thank you very much. We have reached the end of lecture 5. See you next lecture.